As the resume of Big Ten play looms large, is Indiana basketball in trouble with Mike Woodson?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this, the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, thank you so much for being here. Hope you've had a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. No episode on Christmas Day, but we're back for the rest of this week and, of course, into next week as well. And just a reminder, most likely no show on New Year's Day, but we'll have it leading up and following right after that. We're talking all things basketball. As crazy as the transfer portal has been, as much fun as football has been here recently, basketball season is still going, and this Indiana team is back in action in just a couple of days on the 29th before Big Ten play resumes. We're going to look around the rest of the Big Ten college basketball. Where is Bracketology right now? Plus the upcoming schedule for Indiana basketball, because all of that leads into the question that I'm posing, the multiple questions that I'm posing to you today. Is Indiana basketball, are we in trouble with Mike Woodson as our head coach? Can he lead this team into Big Ten play and to the NCAA tournament? Is he the answer of the future? I'll start with the first question, the one that made you get on this episode. Is Indiana basketball in trouble with Mike Woodson? Yes, we absolutely are. Because I want to pose this hypothetical to you, and not even a hypothetical. It's a real question that I want you to answer wherever you're sitting, wherever you're listening or watching this episode. Has there been a game so far this year for Indiana basketball? Answer this really quickly. Has there been a game this year that you have watched, listened to, gone back and watched, kept up with, dug into? Has there been a game this year that you have been impressed with Indiana basketball? Answer that question right now. Most of you probably just said no, right? Because that's my answer too. My answer is also no. I'm not going to say the win over Minnesota was impressive. I think we looked good. I think we did what we were supposed to do, but I'm not going to blow that out of the water and say that we deserve to be a ranked team because of a home win over Minnesota, especially when you back that up by going on the road and getting blasted again by the Cornhuskers of Nebraska, right? And so there has not been a game yet this year that I have watched and done a podcast on that I was like, you know what? That was a good game. We looked good. Indiana played really, really well. I'm proud of this team. Have yet to have that game this year. And that's a problem for me because your last non-conference game is not the game to do it. Even if you look good, it's a non-conference game against another weak opponent that Indiana put on the schedule. And we talked about that preseason. Remember how this schedule isn't overly difficult. It was not the most brutal schedule in there. And yet we have still struggled with it, where you embarrass yourself in the battle for Atlantis. You get a Big Ten win, yippee, and then you look terrible against Nebraska. And so I go back to the original statement. Is Indiana basketball in trouble with Mike Woodson? Yeah, we absolutely are. Because every game looks the same. Every performance is the exact same. There's no different game plans. There are no different plays. There's no difference in effort or accountability. Every single game that this team plays is the exact same. You can predict it, and so can I. And just look around college basketball. We're going to do more of this later in the episode. Man, the Big Ten's good. College basketball is good. And Indiana right now is not. And that's an issue. And so it's plain and simple. If Mike Woodson doesn't fix it, if Mike Woodson does not find a way to help this team win games, he will be fired. He will lose his job. And Here's the sad part, and I'm not saying this about you or about any Indiana fans. A majority of the fan base wants that to happen. They want Mike Woodson to be fired. They're ready for a restart. They're ready to hit the reset button. They're done on this Mike Woodson back to Indiana experiment. And I don't blame you. I totally understand where you're coming from. But from a wider view of all of this, I don't want a coaching fire and another coaching hire, because you then pay somebody to leave and not do their job, and then you have to go find somebody else and pay them more money, especially when we're trying to put football where it needs to be and put money into the football program. Now, some think that the basketball money and the football money are separate, and it most likely is, but you get what I'm saying here. Coaching fires suck, and coaching hires can be fun, but they're also stressful. I just want Indiana to be good, man. I want Indiana basketball to be good again and consistently good, not just a one-hit wonder every now and then because you had a couple of NBA guys on the roster. I want us to be legit again, because the Big Ten's good, but it's not the SEC. It's not the Big East right now. This is a gettable conference. And yet we're worried that Indiana could be, 500 now? Maybe even miss the NCAA tournament again? We cannot afford that. For a team that had such high expectations from myself and from a lot of you, because you can see the talent on this team. Malik Renew is a good player. Mackenzie Mbako is a really good player. Umar Ballo, Miles Rice, nobody has disappointed, I don't think, this year. You've got several of those guys in double digits. Miles Rice has been a great addition. Cannon Carlisle's kind of streaky. Trey Galloway still being streaky, whatever. But nobody is just blowing us away. And I think that's what really gets me here. Nobody has really taken over into that leadership role, into that him role, right? I'm that dude. I'm going to go win us a basketball game. And maybe that comes up in Big Ten play. Maybe it does. But I'm just telling you, if this Indiana team, the way that they're being coached and the way that they play, being led by Mike Woodson, if they continue to play the way they're playing, we will most likely miss the NCAA tournament and Mike Woodson will be fired. So to answer the question again, is Indiana in trouble with Mike Woodson as their head coach? You better believe that we are. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, continuing basketball, because we're talking about this schedule. We're talking about how brutal it is, or lack thereof, but it's just Indiana. More concerns there with the schedule. Let's look at that schedule. What's coming up? We've already started Big Ten play, remember, but a lot more games to go. We've got that coming up for you right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, FanDuel right now, with the NFL playoffs right around the corner, you can get in on the action. It's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players are going to score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, who wins the first half, who wins the second half, those and so many more, right? First touchdown score, or how many field goals are going to be made. You can do all of that on FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Again, your daily Indiana Hoosiers podcast, Monday through Friday. It is free and available to you however you get your podcast, on the audio platforms of Spotify, Amazon, Apple, you name it, we're there, and on the YouTube side of things as well. So again, however you get this show, man, thank you so much for being a fan. for being a supporter and being an everydayer, because you guys are showing up like crazy. No matter what we put out, you are here and taking it all in. So thank you so much for that. And again, with the holidays, just it's a little bit of a different schedule, different setup and everything, but man, we're just happy to be here. So thank you so much for however you support this show, whether you like the videos on YouTube, commenting down below. Be sure you subscribe to the channel as well. We're over 4,000 subs. We're on our way to 4,100 now. So thank you so much for that as well. Well, I keep saying that we're in trouble, that Indiana, if we don't fix the way we're playing on the hardwood, that we might just be in trouble. But what games do we have coming up? Just to refresh your memory, okay? Just to refresh your memory on what's coming up for this Indiana basketball team. Reminder, we're 1-1 in Big Ten play with how the conference, schedules it out with so many teams now. You have to sprinkle some in the non-con schedule. Indiana, remember, we beat Minnesota 82-67 at home to open up Big Ten play. Fine. Happy with it. Not blown away, but fine. And then you back that up with an 85-68 embarrassment on the road against Nebraska. So we're 1-1 in Big Ten play. You've got the Winthrop game coming up on Sunday. That's your non-conference regular season finale before you get fully into Big Ten play. Now, I'm going to kind of break this up and break it down based off of what we're seeing right now from some of these Big Ten teams. Because while this conference isn't just dominating yet, look, we have to give flowers. I know this is a sore subject on the football side of things, but we've got to show a little love to what the SEC is doing. That conference is on fire right now. I mean, what? Isn't every team ranked is what it seems like. I mean, their KenPom numbers are stupid. Their net rankings are going crazy. I mean, there's a lot of good teams. Probably the best season they've ever had to this point in basketball for the Southeastern Conference. I also think the Big East is really, really good. I think the ACC's got a couple of dark horses in there, the Big 12 too. But the Big Ten is just kind of what the Big Ten always is. It's just solid, man. It's just a solid conference where you can hardly ever take a night off in this league. There are still your Minnesotas, yes, of the world that are just not all that great. But man, just looking up and down the schedule, Indiana's got ranked Illinois there, ranked Purdue, ranked Michigan State, ranked UCLA, ranked Oregon, top 10 team in the country, by the way. That doesn't include Ohio State, who I think is going to be ranked at some point and probably should, and Michigan should be on that list as well. So this schedule is not easy, and I do think it is very lopsided, I guess is the best way to put it. It is heavy in the backstretch of the season. Once you hit February, which is what I've been saying all summer long, once you play that January 31st game at Purdue, from then on out, it's murder's row. And if you're not playing your best, you're going to lose every single night. So let's break this thing up a little bit for Indiana, right? We open up Big Ten play again, right? We're 1-1, but just stay with me here. You get Big Ten play started again on Thursday, January 2nd, when Rutgers comes to town. And we know Rutgers, their record's not great, but their talent is some of the best in the entire country. Indiana will be put to the test in this game against Rutgers, a huge opportunity for Mike Woodson and the Hoosiers at home. You then go to Penn State, come back for USC, and you go on the road to Iowa. So those first four games, the start of the new year, Rutgers, at Penn State, USC, and Iowa. I think you got to win three of those. And I think you're better than all of those teams. I think you're better than Penn State. I think you're better than USC. I think you're better than Iowa. I do. I think you're better than all of those teams. But you're probably going to drop one somewhere because the Big Ten is just the way that it is. And it's more of a concern for me, for Indiana to go on the road. Because when's the last time Indiana basketball looked good and not inside of Memorial or inside of Assembly Hall? I can't remember. I literally cannot remember. So that's more of a concern of us going on the road. Then on January 14th, you welcome what is right now a top 25 Illinois team who looked good over this past, was that this past weekend? I think it was. I think it was on Sunday where they played Missouri. And they looked really, really good. Illinois got one of the best freshmen in the entire country. He shoots at like 50% from three. Illinois is legit. So a current top 25 team walking into Assembly Hall. You go to Ohio State, who I think is still one of the best teams in the Big Ten, even though they've taken some early season losses and non-con play. at Northwestern, and then home for Maryland. And Maryland's the same way as Rutgers. Their record may not show it, but they've got a lot of talent. A lot of talent. So there you go again. Think about that 4-game stretch. Illinois at home, at Ohio State, at Northwestern, and home for Maryland. You need to win 3 out of 4 of those, which is going to be really, really tough. I think realistically 2-2, right? But even then, now you're sitting at 3 losses if you do what I've said you're supposed to do. And now is when the brutal stretch hits. January 31st on a Friday night on the road in Mackey Arena, taking on the Boilermakers of Purdue, who are a top 25 team now, and they will most likely be a top 25 team when we roll in there. You play at Purdue, at Wisconsin, home for Michigan, and I'm going to stop right there with just those 3 games. At Purdue, at Wisconsin, and home for Michigan. Win 1, maybe. Win 1. I mean, at Purdue's tough. Wisconsin's a solid team, and it's on the road to Madison where we don't play well. And then Michigan, who I think, again, is a very talented team. You can see a trend here, can't you? And I sound like a broken record, but that's just where this conference is. That's just how this conference is built year after year after year. Even if they're not ranked in the top 25, they are still really talented. And Michigan was one of those teams I've told you throughout the offseason, they hit the portal hard. Them and Ohio State hit the portal, other than Indiana, probably harder than any other team in the conference. So that's a brutal stretch of Purdue, Wisconsin on the road, and then Michigan at home. And there's a reason I stopped there, because listen to this next 3-game stretch. At Michigan State, top 25. Home for UCLA, top 25. And home versus Purdue, top 25. 2 of those games are at home, and you're at Michigan State. You have to win 2 of those 3, including Purdue. You have to win 2 out of 3, including Purdue, if you want this season to be what we think it can be. If you want to be an NCAA tournament team, if you want to prove to us that this team has the stones to do what it takes and win basketball games and make a run in March, you have to go 2 of 3 in that stretch. The final 4 games, February 26th against Penn State at home, Washington on the road, at Oregon, who's top 10 in the country right now. Whether that's the case come March 4th, I don't know. And then you end the year in Assembly Hall with Ohio State, who very well could be ranked top 25 by the time they roll in here. This is not an easy schedule, but this team is good enough to manage it. I think Indiana is talented enough to manage our schedule, but I'm not concerned with the talent. That's never been a problem, especially with what we did in the portal and what we brought back from last year. My concern is, what effort do they play with? What energy do they have? Do they have any sort of, I don't know, positivity? Do they have any sort of just want to be there? And does their head coach give them a game plan and coach them correctly in a way to give them the best chance to win? I haven't seen that so far from Mike Woodson. And just think about that schedule I rattled off to you. How good it could go and how awesome this season could be if Indiana wins some of these big-time games and can get on a roll and be one of the best teams in the Big Ten. It sets up for you to be a really high seed in the NCAA tournament. But on the flip side, and the side that I fear for, is this season could go really, really bad. And Indiana could be caught right in the middle, again, right around 500, and have to make a run, possibly win the Big Ten tournament to be in the NCAA tournament. And if that's the case and you don't make it, see you later, Woody. See you later, because this is not going to work out for you. You will be gone, and Indiana will move on. So that's the Big Ten. That's what this conference is looking like. What about college basketball? What about bracketology? What are they saying about Indiana and the rest of this conference right now? We'll have that for you coming up in our final segment right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time, it's my go-to ticketing app, folks. You know this: sports, music, comedy, theater, you name it, and Game Time has got it. And one of my favorite features is the one they want you to know about right now. It's called Game Time Picks. what it does, it's going to filter out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. You pair that with a couple of other of their amazing features. How about their all-in pricing? When you toggle this feature, it's going to show your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You toggle this, the price you see is the price that you pay. And Game Time's ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. It's why I use Game Time. I'm going to a concert in February, and guess what? I used the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again for being here. And if it looks or sounds a little bit different, we're still operating on the road. So I appreciate you bearing with me here. We will be back in the home setup, start of the new year. And so, again, hope you all had a fantastic holidays. Hope you're getting ready for a fun and happy, safe new year for 2025. And as we are preparing for 2025 and we prepare for conference play to begin around the country or even resume like it is in the Big Ten around the country. We've been talking about this Indiana team and how I believe we're in trouble with Mike Woodson, especially given the schedule that we just went over. But have you looked at Bracketology recently? Have you looked and seen what's going on around college basketball in this crazy year? This was updated on the 24th on New Year's Eve, or not New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, sorry. On Christmas Eve, you start looking at some of these teams, and we're going to obviously focus on Indiana and the Big Ten. The top overall seed right now is Auburn, who I think is the best team in the country. First team out is Nebraska, that team that just had their way with us a while back in our second Big Ten game. Nebraska first team out, so they're right there on the bubble. Last team in is SMU. Listen to the teams from the Big Ten that are currently on the bubble, and this is going to concern you. Ohio State, Nebraska, Iowa, and Northwestern. All those teams are on the bubble. Let me say those again. Ohio State, Nebraska, Iowa, and Northwestern. Those are the Big Ten teams that are currently on the bubble. So you may be asking, oh, does that mean Indiana is in the tournament? Are we in bracketology? No, we're not. We're not, because we have yet to do anything that has given us a reason to be in bracketology. We have not done anything that gives us a reason to be in the NCAA tournament. All we've done is show our you-know-what and basically turn people away from us. But as I was saying, our schedule lines up for us to have opportunities. You have several top 25 games on the road and at your house to get some big wins this year. But it's not even as much fun as those are, and as big as they are, and important as they are, right, for Indiana or any college basketball team. What's the concern with Indiana basketball? It's not about getting big wins. We've ran with big teams and had chances to win these games in the past several years. Yes, you need to get over the hump and win those. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the problem is not winning big games. The problem is losing crappy games. It's letting the Northwesterns of the world and the Nebraskas of the world just make you look silly, make you look like you don't even belong on the floor with them. That is the concern, and that has been a Mike Woodson problem. So I don't know if it's a lack of respect for your opponent, if it's just a completely idiotic training session and coaching style, if it's just the game has passed you by, or what you're saying is not translating to your team on game day. I'm tired of hearing about competitive practices and had our best practice of the year the other day, and I don't care. I don't care, because it's obviously not translating to the floor, and that's been an issue the entire time in this short stint for Mike Woodson. And we have to find a way to overcome that and avoid that. You have to take care of business against Iowa when you have your opportunity. You have to, because those games against Purdue and UCLA and Ohio State, right? Oregon, those are tough matchups that you're not going to win them all, but you got to get a couple. But you can't afford to slip up against the smaller teams in this conference. Breakdown of the conferences in bracketology. Talked about the SEC a little bit ago. They currently have 13 teams slated to make the NCAA tournament. Do you realize how insane that is? Do you realize how stupid that is? And I think that could hold strong come March. I know this is late December. We got a long way to go, but that could still be true come late March. Big Ten, we've got 10 teams in the NCAA tournament. That does not include Indiana. All right, some of those teams, Maryland is in there. UCLA is in there. Michigan State as a 5 seed. They're a solid team, man. Watch out for Michigan State. Wisconsin is an NCAA tournament team as of right now. Ohio State is a tournament team. Purdue is in there as a 5 seed as of right now. You also have Oregon as a 3 seed. I think that's a solid spot for them. Michigan as a 7 seed over there, matched up with Utah State, possibly playing Kentucky in the second round. How cool would that be? You also have Illinois as a 6 seed and Penn State as a 10 seed. So even those games against Maryland or Penn State or Wisconsin, right, ones that you feel are winnable but still tough, you're talking about tournament teams that Indiana has on our schedule. And man, I don't know. My confidence in Mike Woodson and my confidence going into Big Ten play just seems to be shot. And I hope that they prove me wrong. I hope they completely prove me wrong and make me eat my words, and I will gladly hop on this podcast and do that. I just don't see it happening right now, unless something changes. If something can change, and Mike Woodson can adapt, which is a crazy word in his language, I think, adapt and change the way that he coaches his team and the style that they play with and gets them to light a fire under their you-know-what, almost said it, but you-know-what, then I think we could be okay. But if we don't, if we keep playing the way we are, we'll go 500, we'll miss the tournament, and we'll be looking for a new head coach. Don't wish for that, fans. Don't. I know a lot of you don't want Woodson here anymore, and I get it. But wishing for the team to fail, for the coach to be fired, is not the answer. I promise you it's not. So we'll see how it goes. Indiana back in action on the 29th. Then they get back into Big Ten play with what is, I think, a really, really talented Rutgers team. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here. Hope you enjoyed a full basketball episode. Haven't done one of these in quite some time, but wanted to get one in here around the holidays as we're about to get Big Ten play back up and started. And hopefully this team can find a way to get some big-time wins getting in to 2025. Be sure that you have liked the video if you have not already. Be sure you comment down below your thoughts on Indiana basketball. What do you think this team's record will be, their final Big Ten record? Let's drop that in the comments down below. And be sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And for those of you on the audio side, be sure you subscribe if you can, follow us if you can, have those notifications turned on because we post bonus episodes sometimes on the same day or over the weekend and would not want you to miss any of that, okay? We are back tomorrow to wrap up the week, Hoosiers fans. Until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.